right, everything is recording.
No need to ask.
No need to ask.
Wait, do we get in trouble if we impersonate other people's art?
YouTube's very weird about things. The podcast I wouldn't be so concerned about. But I would say if you're going to begin singing Smooth Operator by... try to not sing it well.
Smooth.
Smooth Operator.
Very nice. Welcome to episode 6. Episode 6 was going to be about why are artists so sad?
Artists are sad. We've been talking about this potential episode since episode 1, I think.
What's up with us?
Why are artists canonically just sad? There's the general idea by the public, and even most artists would
it's very internalized.
Would champion the fact that if you're an artist, you're fucked in the head a little bit.
Something a little bit off about creatives. Can we confirm or deny?
I mean, I can definitely confirm that there's more and more things up with me that I find on
me personally
on a weekly basis. So it's true on this side of things, yes.
I did want to start this episode with a little bit of a check-in because I thought that would be good. We're kind of going to jump into some mental health topics in this episode. Be forewarned, we did a little bit of research into the links potentially between creativity and mood disorders. If there are any, we'll talk about it. But to start, how you doing?
It's been an interesting time. Are we dealing with this like a little bit like a therapy session?
Yeah.
Podcast therapy session.
This is your podcast therapy session.
Okay, great. The last episode, we told you that you were worth something, and now I'm going to just offload all of my trauma onto you.
And how does that make you feel?
It's an interesting time right now because I'm being faced with the reasons I even moved to New York at the moment, emotionally. Because I moved to New York wanting to collaborate with people and make things for the sake of making things. I'm not a person who is, unfortunately, super concerned about money. That's not because of a status thing.
Yeah.
That's just because my autistic little brain does not equate craft and passions to financial compensation.
I mean, I don't know if this has any scientific backing, but there does seem to be a correlation between people who are interested in truth finding and discovering and creating and the lack of interest in attaining material wealth. Those things may be mutually exclusive.
When I moved here, and I'm gonna be a little on the personal side here because it makes the most sense to explain this before. Now some nice lights coming in. It's shining down at me, just don't leave.
The universe gave you permission.
It's I guess go for it. I moved to New York with the idea of a brownstone, taking a bunch of creative people together, having a space to live together and create together, and having those support structures just throughout that building. If you had a creative inclination and you needed help in a certain direction, there was someone in the building who could help you and assist you and be a little bit of a tangential muse to whatever inclination you have. And then in return, you would be that for another person with your skill set.
And to which I respond, can I come?
Yes, we're going to get to that point. And I still have that dream. I don't want to call it a dream because realistically, it's what I feel like I need as a person. It is it's me screaming, saying, please, please. When I moved here, as we talked about in our productivity episode, I moved here very much of the mindset, I'm just going to do shit and throw myself into it and see what happens. I'm going to make those connections in order to get to this point, make those friends, and create for the sake of creation. Hopefully things fall into place. So many things have happened since I've moved to New York.
And nothing simple here.
And nothing simple has happened. And I'm also discovering that this city absolutely does not empathize with doing craft for the sake of craft.
This is a place for
efficiency, productivity,
the individualistic
profit,
mindset.
Output. Yeah. It's individualist mindset. If you are an artist, I'm going to use capital A artist, not that that means anything.
Well, if you're an artist interested in collaboration and community.
Yeah. This is not exactly the place to do that unless you are in a pipeline of some sort. You're not exactly doing it because you are the source of craft or you are directly assisting the craft. You are facilitating someone else's craft. And the very small, very minute amount of people can actually be part of that lightning in a bottle sort of effect of working with other people and being the ideation. Which, as an engineer, I love being involved in the ideation of musicians and producers. That's what I need. People to facilitate my practice through their practice, and vice versa. I want to be able to facilitate other people's practice through my practice. Here, it's not about that. And I've been very sad the last month or so because I'm seeing how not cut out for New York City I am. And it has made me think so much of just like, what do I do? I came here. Right. I still want these same things. I'm very realistically way better at my craft than when I entered, but nothing's moving at the moment. What do I do? Mm-hmm. So then the fear sets in of, oh, fuck, what does it mean to leave?
Right. Yeah, no, change is very scary.
Oh, fuck, what does it mean to leave and go somewhere else? Mm-hmm. So that's where I'm at right now.
It's really funny because I think a lot of us come here for the artistic community specifically, but the artistic community here can be supportive in places, but may not be supporting you personally.
It can be very supportive when you're in the position where the system under you is actively there to facilitate. But there is such a small amount of people who realistically have that position to have people facilitate your craft. Mm-hmm. In so many ways, you are in the hustler's mindset.
Yes, you're doing
in New
everything
York.
yourself.
Yeah. While I applaud people who can do that effectively, it's at its core opposed to the exact reason I came here. To work with other people and be passionate with other people.
And it's part of the reason why we started a podcast.
Yeah.
For community building, which can realistically be done anywhere, right?
It can absolutely be done anywhere. And that's the thing. I agree with you
that New York does have this kind of mindset of, if you're going to do this, figure it all out yourself.
It is the hustler's city.
Yeah. That's interesting. I feel that too. I never associated it with New York. My feeling that I need to constantly be productive, as we spoke about.
Well, yeah, that's also just like a general global issue.
It is a general globe, but I would bet that it's more severe here than in other places.
It is very severe here. Uh-huh. And it's not exactly like it's compensated well for, respected, or treated for what it is.
And that's not to trash the New York art scene. Things happen here that don't happen anywhere else, and that's still what amazes me about the city. Like, you can go to a festival for specifically metal singers that only sing
over string quartets.
Precisely. That exists. You can find that. You can go and listen.
I think I heard that like 2 days ago out my window.
It's the artistic community is vibrant.
It is vibrant because it has no other choice but to be vibrant. Because if it wasn't that, then no traction would be brought forth. Mm-hmm. So Portland looks really cool.
I was trying to convince you to think about places that are warmer than New York because...
and I didn't.
For me personally, the struggle of New York, the culture, I see it. And I don't love it, and I do love it.
I think also a big tick of me considering what does it mean to leave New York was, do you know LCD Sound System?
Yes.
New York-based dance punky.
Yes.
And they talk about New York a lot. And they have this one track, I Love You, New York, but You're Bringing Me Down. And that entire record that it's on is also talking about like the existence of living in New York. And I was going on a run one day and I put that on, which also like, LCD Sound System, great to run to.
And it resonated.
I accidentally ended up running a 5K and a half because I didn't want to stop listening to the record.
Wow.
And then I arrived home while I Love New York, but You're Bringing Me Down started playing. Ooh, I just got weirdly emotional for a second. Mm-hmm. Like literally at the front door of my apartment, it's just like, fuck. It's a love-hate relationship with New York. It forces you to overcompensate everything you do. But it's not even facilitating the thing I came here for. So what the fuck am I overcompensating for?
I hear.
But Portland's winters are slightly warmer than New York winters.
We did talk about this. My thing about New York, I love the culture here in terms of just the amount.
Just the amount, period.
Just the amount.
There's so much.
And the energy of it, like it definitely fuels something
yeah.
in a creative person.
Well, also, you're here in the Big Apple. That is inherently, based on just media you take in.
More opportunities and everything.
It's just if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. Which is realistically true. Good luck, though.
It's such an insult to a city, though. You're basically saying,
if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. Yeah, it's really fucking hard here. I see why they say that now.
For me, what New York doesn't support, it's the winter. And I hate to be like a bitch because some places have winter much worse than here.
Oh, no, it's gross here. No, New York City winters are fucking disgusting.
Chicago has it so much worse.
Yeah, but they're just cold and windy. It's gross here, gross. We live in sludge.
Sludge is, so the winters for me, it's a real slow time.
It's very slow.
And while a lot of creativity can come out of that kind of drop in introversion or the drop in extroversion, I guess, but
The Rise of Introversion.
the rise of introversion.
Would that be a good novel? The Rise of Introversion.
That would be good.
Yeah.
It's about being in your 30s. That's so funny.
Don't say that at all.
So
it's birthday season.
A lot of ideas and what's it called when you generate ideas?
Ideation?
Thoughts.
Thought provocation. Alchemy.
No.
Witchcraft. Thinking. Inspiration.
What's another word for thinking?
Processing.
That's close.
Cognitive divination.
So, a lot of thinking.
A lot of thinking. Okay, we just threw out all of those options and you just went right back to thinking. Nice.
A lot of cognitive ideation.
Okay.
Whatever. Can happen in this period where I'm low energy, I'm not feeling social, and it's hard to get outside, and it's hard to get to studio, and it's hard to make work. But that's not necessarily to say that it's not a creatively productive time. It's just a difficult time.
Yeah.
What happens to me is after the winter, in the spring and summer, and into the fall, that's when I can really take advantage of New York and the energy that's here.
Yeah.
And take it and turn it into my own motivation to create.
Yeah.
Problem is that's 6, maybe 7, if I'm lucky, 8 months out of the year.
They've been getting kind of worse and worse as time goes on, where it's just I don't really understand. The thing is, for me, I'm also a person where I hate the summers sometimes more than the winters. I don't deal well with heat.
Yeah.
So when the winters are really bad, can't do shit. When the summers are really bad, don't want to do shit.
Mm-hmm. It's even if it's a lucky 8, let's say, months out of the year when I can be productive here, that's 4 months of depression that I don't want in my life, right? It's hard. And I mean, this is maybe just grass is greener thinking, but I do think that I could be both healthier and more creatively inspired in an environment where I can maintain that for longer. So there aren't these dips and valleys and.
Well, I will tell you that there is a lot more green grass anywhere else but here.
That too.
What if I told you that there's
more green elsewhere?
That it's not just confined to this
Square?
Nice bricked off square block, but it things are built on top of the green rather than around the green. Pretty fucking nuts.
That would be nuts.
So is that grass is greener, or is that just acknowledging that, ooh, grass?
So we love New York and we're here and we're making the most of it. But I can see, and I think we probably both can see, why people sometimes don't see New York as their long-term goal to habitate. To habitate in. To be habitated in.
It's not a habitate. It's not a place to habitate.
It's not a habitate.
Which is weird because there's a lot of people habitating.
There's a lot of habitation.
Anyways, enough about my check-in. Your therapy session starts now.
Well, yeah, that's kind of what I was gonna talk about. Actually, was the seasonal stuff. For me, that hits hard.
Yeah.
So obviously now is a better time. What's interesting about this year, for some reason, and I don't know why, there was an eclipse. Maybe it's astrological.
Perhaps.
The spring hit, and I didn't come out of my hibernation.
Same. No, I thought like in previous years, I had felt a little bit more of a break from wintertime. This spring, even though this spring was pretty nice, we had a beautiful spring. The first like nice spring, I think, since COVID hit. And I didn't feel it.
I'm glad that you relate.
No,
kind of weird, right?
It's strange. It's really fucking strange.
I just was like, oh, I still want to be at home in my hibernation hole and not socialize and not make work, and I really don't want to.
It's also like 60 degrees outside, and the sun's out, and it's like a nice breeze, and also like I see things blossoming outside.
So there was this like big like.
I'm just gonna go die in bed now.
I got scared. I was like, why aren't I feeling my thing, my little energy for the springtime thing? And then another fear came in there where it was like, wait, did I not figure out my own mental health? Because I thought it was related to
There's more to
the
unpack.
temperature. So then I was like, oh no, do I need to figure out a whole new set of coping mechanisms and strategies to deal? Because like,
God forbid you haven't figured everything out that you are in your mid-20s.
that's a really good point.
God forbid.
But now I'm feeling summery now. Now I'm feeling
I mean, it's definitely summer now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's your state of things, where you finally feel like you came out of it.
Yeah, a little bit. I hope I get another month of feeling capable on the other end to compensate for the lack of spring that I got, but we'll see.
Let's hope.
Yeah.
Let's hope for it.
Maybe I'll have a great October.
I feel like there's a lot of people in my own life and also in your life who did take a long time to get out of that winter slump. But now that summer's hit, massive changes are being made.
I mean, maybe it's just cognitive bias or whatever you call it. But ever since I left my 9 to 5, I've been seeing a lot of people around me leaving their jobs, switching careers, doing all kinds of things with their lives. And that could just be the stage of life. I mean, actually, I know people at all stages of life, so I'm going to scratch that.
Yeah, I'm going
to
tell you right now,
55-year-olds.
My own mother called me the other day, like after listening to our productivity episode and ranting about that she didn't know how to change it and that she didn't like it. And it was like, oh no, how do I expect it to get better for me then?
Oh, shout out Marie.
Shout out Marie. But yeah, it's not an age group thing. It is a general existence thing. But I think that might point to that longer slump being that there's more and more people that just didn't want to return.
Yes.
As they had left
it does have to do with the pandemic.
It's one, the pandemic, but just something about this year. Again, maybe it's astrological. No fucking clue. But there's so many people in my life that took so long to return to the world after this winter and after this slump because they didn't want to face what they had left in the fall. Because what they had left in the fall was already something they didn't like, and they had the excuse of winter to pull back from it.
I see.
And now that they're coming back with no excuses to be like, well, time to start the same thing again. Wait, no, fuck that. I'm going to uproot my existence for the better.
The point I was going to make was, even though it didn't seem like anything really changed, I was kind of hoping during the pandemic that some of these changes that were made would stay. No, I mean, not that it was obviously a tragic experience for us to go through as a human organism, but there was a lot of empathy built, a lot of understanding.
Yeah.
And I was hoping that some of the things that we had implemented for the sake of the pandemic would continue afterwards. And it really didn't seem like that at first. It seemed like people had to go back to work, and they had to forget about their the time that they had spent with their families or dogs or whatever you had at home, and just continue as we were before. And I was kind of disappointed. But then as we've maybe integrated or processed a little bit, I think from my perspective, what might be happening is people are kind of realizing what they didn't like about before the pandemic that the pandemic maybe brought out. Like if you weren't so hot about what you were doing,
the pandemic definitely didn't make you want to come back to it.
Right. And now maybe people are realizing that they might want to do more of what they like doing, or more of the spending time with whatever they like to spend time with outside of work. even if you still have to work to make a living. And a lot of people are deciding that their work should be something that they want to do.
Yeah.
Welcome to the podcast.
The last episode on self-worth.
By the way, this is Practically Happy.
This is Practically Happy. Make sure to like, subscribe, leave a review on podcast platforms. We are Abby and Cole talking about why are artists so sad today?
I am Abby Rhodes.
Yes.
Named after...
the Beatles Street.
Named myself after the Beatles album, Abbey Road.
I prefer to think of you as named after the electric piano,
Also
which is my favorite
works.
instrument, so that's high praise.
And this is Cole Raser.
I am Cole Raser, named after my father.
I like it because we are Racer and Rhodes, and we've talked about this before. Racer and Rhodes is a good combination of things. It sounds very vroom.
It sounds very vroom. It also sounds like legal firm.
It sounds like the kind of legal firm that
gets you into more trouble.
might get you into more trouble.
That actually made your case worse.
Racer and Rhodes, are you a criminal and you know it?
Come to us. Do we want to get into the main focus
Our
of this
topic
week?
today.
Our topic today, which is a pretty deep topic. Coming in from the productivity and self-worth episodes, we're on a streak of beating people to the curb with information. I promise one of these episodes will be fun again.
I think we make everything fun here at Practically Happy with Racer and Rhodes.
Everything's fun here.
Everything's fun.
No funny business. In fact, no business. Get the business out of here.
No business.
No business.
We artists. So we wanted to talk about where this notion of something being off about creative people comes from. There's obviously this big societal notion of like the mad genius.
There's also like a societal gratification of it. Almost like fetishization.
People like to make us special.
Yeah.
And we are.
We are special, but if we're going to say it like that, we're claiming that we're special because we're fucked in the head.
So we're going to talk about a little bit of the problems with those ideologies, where they come from, and how much accuracy they hold. Yeah, how much credibility they have.
I prescribed to that whole mad genius ideology for a very long time, and I do believe there is a lot of validity to why we see creatives and divergently identifying people in the arts. I think there is a connection. However, I don't believe it is the connection that is often made. So let's get into it.
Yeah, I think what I hear sometimes is towards sensitivity.
Yeah.
So people who are sensitive emotionally might also be sensitive to other phenomena, like changes in scenery or sound. And they might be able to articulate them.
Like they have the vocabulary.
So they are sensitive, so they appreciate the subtler things, so they might want to articulate those things in a art form. Which is a few jumps. There's a few jumps there.
There's a few jumps there. You see things, therefore you could make things.
Also, equating sensitivity to artistry.
Yeah.
There's a few problems there.
There's also a lot of insensitive art, so
there's a lot of insensitive art.
Checkmate.
And there's a lot of perfectly sensitive people that don't choose to make art. And it makes sense to us as creatives, and it also fits in with our cultural narrative that there's something special.
And I think that's where a little bit of like the fetishization comes from, is the fact that we need there to be some grander reason for like why people create things. And for some reason, it fit people's narrative that if you're fucked, you're going to do this thing that isn't, as we've talked about, isn't practical. Because creativity is a form of like alchemy. If we want to go as far to call it divination, you are creating things that didn't previously exist. One could call that a divergent practice than the typical person's going about of their day, needing to, instead of existing and moving through life, concocting it into something else.
That ties beautifully into a theory that I'll bring up later. We called this podcast Practically Happy
Yeah.
because we're questioning whether the dominant definition of practical serves us and whether happiness could in fact or the pursuit of
I'm wondering if you could hear that on the podcast. Breaking this for a second. I thought that was an ambulance sound outside, but it was definitely
a human
person.
being.
That was
Yeah.
a person.
It was a being of
going
human
woo,
variety.
woo, 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 woo. Anyways, back to what you said.
Yeah, so we're questioning whether happiness or the pursuit of happiness can in fact be our new definition of practical.
Yeah.
So there is evidence that mood disorders and creativity could be linked. However, it is loose and largely anecdotal.
Yeah.
And just a note about anecdotal evidence before we jump into the actual research. I am a big believer in anecdotal evidence.
I'm also a big believer in anecdotal evidence because that's what people are. All they are anecdotes. If you're using people as subjects in a test, you are using just a collection of anecdotes in a test.
And that's the problem with psychological research.
There we
to begin
go.
with, in a nutshell, basically. But what I was going to bring up is that anecdotal has this negative connotation, right? It's almost like if you're more
hearsay.
intellectual, it sounds like fake.
Yeah.
Right. Anecdotal just means like self-reported or cultural phenomena is basically what it refers to. And
Which, while crazy that most mental illness was only anecdotal until pretty recently in our human history.
there are a lot of things that are anecdotal or that science can't or doesn't or hasn't yet proved that are perfectly real.
Yes.
And I have kind of a funny example.
A funny example.
Yeah.
A funny ha-ha.
A funny ha-ha.
A laugh.
I had a coworker who was Dominican.
Okay.
And apparently there is a tradition not only in the Dominican Republic, but in other island nations and places around the world with indigenous communities where if your wife or if you know someone who is pregnant and they're having morning sickness, you have to feed them a turtle. Get over it. It's okay. Different cultures eat different things.
No, I mean, like, turtle is turtle.
Turtle is turtle. And this will help with their morning sickness. Now,
This is a live turtle or a dead turtle? A prepared turtle?
so the preparation is actually very important.
Raw
So
turtle.
my Dominican coworker, whose name is Roberto, he tells me part of the tradition is that you cannot have your wife know that it's a turtle or it won't work.
What? Whoa. Whoa.
Which I
I
actually
spiked
think
your breakfast with turtle.
you tell them it's chicken soup,
Oh, so soup form. Okay.
right? And you don't tell them that it's really turtle.
soup.
And if they know that it's turtle, it can make their morning sickness worse, right? This is all
Well, yeah, if I was eating
Right, if you
something that
knew-
was chicken and then I found out, like, hey, by the way, you're eating, like, a soup made from, like, Hudson River water, I'd just be like, so you have to gaslight your wife
you have
into
to
eating
gaslight
turtle
your wife
soup.
into eating turtle, and then you can help her morning sickness. It's a very sweet, albeit highly patriarchal tradition.
Yeah, a little bit. Just a little bit.
What's interesting is that there are different cultures that have the same tradition. Not the same, but like feeding somebody turtle for morning sickness.
Yeah.
There is no evidence scientifically that this works or does anything. And yet it has helped many generations of many people for a long time. That's what traditions are, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think it would be fair for me to say it can't work. There's no evidence. We haven't found any reason why this would work when there are enough people for a long enough period of time saying this works and we continue to do it because it's tradition
we
and it
see
worked.
it
And
work.
it worked for my mother, so why wouldn't I do it to my wife? Why wouldn't I force feed turtle?
Why wouldn't I force feed my wife a turtle? Why is my wife asking me why we have so many empty turtle shells? It's nothing, honey.
I also like to imagine like the lengths that husbands may have. I have no idea.
Where do
obviously.
they get the turtles from? Okay, but if
these
it's
are in populations
yeah,
where turtles exist,
specifically for
these,
sickness.
These traditions only happened in places where turtles are ample ample, abundant turtles.
Abundant turds.
Right? So you go into your backyard, you find a good old turtle, and your wife's like, "What are you doing, honey?" And she's having a little bit of, sickness, and you're like, "Nothing."
Nothing. Pulling a turtle from their shell. I don't know how one removes a turtle from its shell, but I imagine it's like one removing
really
like a
imagine.
piece of gum from like inside of like
Poor turtles.
where it's just and it just stretches for a while and then it goes.
Honestly, I don't think I would mind whether it was chicken or turtle. Like I don't know if I have a hierarchy.
I could imagine chicken probably or turtle probably could taste like chicken.
It's not about taste for me. I don't know if I have a hierarchy and like what animals deserve life more.
And turtles are at the bottom of that list.
But I think I don't disagree with tricking me into thinking it's chicken. I might want to be tricked.
I don't know. I think I like chicken soup. I've had that. Turtle soup. I'm interested.
All right, so we need to get Cole some morning sickness and Roberto, my ex-coworker.
Let's make it happen.
So just because science has a hard time making a strong correlation between mental health and artistry or creativity doesn't mean that because we have this cultural idea of the mad genius from generations back, dating all the way as far back as Plato and Beethoven and Van Gogh and Kurt Cobain more modernly, like there's enough in our cultural lexicon to say that this might be the case regardless of the evidence, but I do want to get into what we know. So there is this research by Madhup Akinola and Wendy Berry Mendez. And they wrote a paper called The Dark Side of Creativity, Biological Vulnerability and Negative Emotions Lead to Greater Artistic Activity. So basically that's their claim.
Yeah.
But specifically...
And if we can link this in our description...
We should, yeah.
We should link this in our description because it is a very good piece of documentation. I actually very much enjoyed reading.
That one?
I liked it a lot.
I read through the other ones a lot more. This one I kind of like skimmed through. But
really? This is the one I came with, and we will talk about that as we go.
I'm just going to give you the short of it. Results confirmed a person-by-person situation interaction. Social rejection was associated with greater artistic creativity. We show that when individuals are biologically vulnerable to experiencing negative affect, and in this study, what negative affect refers to are certain chemicals within the body, but basically negative affect, feelings of rejection, and susceptibility to depression.
Yeah.
So when these folks with the biological vulnerability are exposed to a situation that brings about intense negative emotion, they show the most artistic creativity of other people in the groups that they studied. This data provides evidence of possible biological and social pathways to artistic creativity. So this is on the side of there is
a cognitive link.
But maybe not in the way that we sometimes think about it. Like, it's not so much the artists are depressed. It's that potentially if you are socially not feeling so good, you might produce more artistically.
Yes. What in reading that study showed me was we see neurodivergence, divergent identities, any form of just being outside of the typical, we see those in proximity to the arts as there must be a psychological connection to why those people exist in that space. I believe it is much more possible, and in observing and being in like a city like New York, when a system is built around a typical social caste expectations and cues.
This is a very good point.
It is those that are on the more divergent side of things that will seek out divergent forms of expression as to find community, as to be able to express themselves, as to be able to explore themselves in a method of safety and in a method that is malleable to their person, so they can craft their own means of existing within society.
And by just the fact of them being on the outskirts of a cultural norm, society might label them with something like depression or a disorder. So that's again a jump it could be true, but it's not potentially accurate. It's just that they don't fit in. Is that sort of kind of?
Yeah, I mean, divergent.
Right.
It diverges. And also, if we want to talk about like sensitivity, we could see being on the fringe as just having a greater view on the whole. If you're on the outside, you can more accurately and with a lot more influence make commentary, display, just general works about the whole because you see all of it. And because you are no longer in the middle of it thinking that all of this is normal, this is how it works. Once you're on the outside and realize that, oh, wait, there's not one way this works. What the fuck's going on over there? You can then begin to do something with it. And that may drive you to create something about it, because we've talked about this in earlier episodes on why children would create art just instinctively, why they would scribble something on paper, write in their limited vocabulary whatever they feel.
Right, not because they're sad.
Not because they're sad, but because they have a limited vocabulary and a limited means of expression, so they use what they have in order to express themselves. If I'm to make a greater point about something, I'm not going to go through the same channels as someone who can simply just like do some public speaking. I am going to make art about it because I know I can find my own unique way of translating that feeling onto someone else so that they feel what I'm feeling. Because I have no other way of explaining it but to have you feel how I feel. Because there's not words for it. To me, there's not even a way I could make you look at it and let you see that. I have my own way that I have found to help you express that. If I had the vocabulary for what I had, I could just say it. But I don't. But it is being on the fringe that makes you think of, well, I can't express like those people, so I'm going to find my own means. So voila, you have people who are divergent taking divergent means of communication.
I see it.
Crazy.
I see it, and
It's not psychological, it's sociological.
pause for effect.
Pause for effect. I really wanted a horn to honk outside.
I see it, and I also see how...
That's just my take on that.
And I'm not sure if this is the case, but different artists clearly choose different sensory modes of output. So you could choose visual, you could choose auditory, you could choose written. Different ways for people to intake the information that they are outputting.
Yep.
And this could correlate to your own sensory experience of the world.
Yes.
Which, depending on your neurology and its specificities, its particulars,
It's flavor.
it's going to be different for everyone. So for you, it's more auditory.
Yeah. And I'm not even meaning to make that about like me specifically. I'm using that because, of course, I'm my best example.
Right.
I know me more than I know most other people, and I'm still figuring my shit out. But that's what I took from that study, is that it's not necessarily a correlation between mentally ill folks create art because they actively feel more. It's because they have feelings that they can't use the typical means to communicate. Therefore, they would find their divergent means of communication.
That's an interesting point. I'm going to make a very different point.
Okay, make that point.
I do want to talk about some of the other components of the stuff we found on both sides of this argument. On the side of, yes, there is a link, and no, maybe there isn't.
Yes.
So
do and do.
Another way that artists' brains are apparently different from everyone else's comes from a report by the BBC on Rebecca Chamberlain's brain scan research that was published in Neuroimage. We can also link that potentially. Participants' brain scans revealed that artists had increased neural matter in areas relating to fine motor movements and visual imagery. Specifically, these detailed brain scans revealed that the artist group in this study had significantly more gray matter in the area of the brain called the precuneus and the parietal lobe. This region is involved in a range of functions, but potentially in things that could be linked to creativity, like visual imagery, or being able to manipulate visual images in your brain, combine them, and deconstruct them. Less about mental health, more about how...
More about developmental.
We're just a little different. And, And another critique of a lot of the research that has gone into this mad genius notion, this creatives are sad idea, is that chicken egg. It's is the area of my brain that has to deal with visual and motor skills more developed because I've drawn for 14 years?
Yeah.
Or is it that I had these differences in my brain to begin with,
that
and
you're
that
predisposed
and that led
to be
me-
able to do those
Right.
things? Which there's also a lot of evidence to point that talent doesn't necessarily exist. Intrinsic ability doesn't necessarily exist.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, when we're talking about like chicken or the egg, what came first, your ability or your predisposition? People were making art before we even had a concept of what predisposition was. So
It's definitely something instinctual about it.
definitely can throw that one out.
From my own experience, I was diagnosed, and I say that in big quotes, as a kid with a learning disability, dyslexia.
Yeah.
And I say that in big quotes. I will explain that. I had the fortune of having access to tutoring, which made that disability. I'm calling it a disability in quotes for me.
Disability.
For other people, it's a
So
different
that as
experience.
if you're like some like oil baron in the West.
Disability.
I got some disability.
The tutoring that I had the fortune of having access to made it so that this disability did not affect my learning to a great extent.
Yeah.
Right. So I was able to learn to read and write by other means, even though I was late to the game. But something that dyslexics are often able to do, and the reason why they get things backwards a lot is because they can take shapes in their head and spin them around and see them from all different angles, even if they have never seen that shape other than in a 2D format. And other people have this ability too, but it's common in dyslexic, and it is postulated that could be the reason why they do struggle to learn to read and write, is because letters are just shapes. And if you take a P and you flip it around all different ways, it becomes other things, like a 9 or a D
or a
or
Q.
a Q. So this article resonated with me because I do have this difference, I guess you could say, in my brain chemistry. I happen to have both struggled with reading and writing because of dyslexia, and I'm also creative. So
But are they linked?
we're jumping.
I don't see a lot of writing in your art, do I?
Maybe there's a reason for that.
Oh no, fuck.
That's funny. I just added some text.
I was in the studio
You
the
were
other
in my
day.
studio.
I was in your studio the other day with my partner, who now shares a studio with you.
They left me a
And I
lovely
s-
note.
Oh, you actually found it? The you're dumb. I don't know why I've just been
You're dumb.
URDUM. You're dumb.
It made me smile. And then sad.
I'm glad
Just
you.
kidding.
No, I'm glad you. See, like I only give that note to people when I'm confident that they won't take it in the negative way and realize URDUM is in itself
You're dumb.
fucking stupid. You're dumb.
By the way, we decided to film today or record today in my apartment. We were going to use your apartment, and I had the full and complete intention of writing "You're dumber" on a napkin. in
You're
your
dumber.
apartment.
I really hope it would be DUMR.
Yeah.
You're dumber.
You're
Dumber.
D-U-M-O-R.
The more.
You're dumber.
You're the more.
So that's the short on the list
And
of things.
I will have you know that you did spell everything you spelled correctly.
Oh, thank you. Oh, I projected it.
Well, there we go. It was very well done.
My handwriting's not that good.
Thank you for listening to part 1 of the episode. If you didn't know this was part 1 of the episode, neither did we until this moment.
Continue to part 2 if you're available, interested, if you'd like to.
Or if it's even available yet.
And don't forget, we are practically happy with Raser and Rhodes, and we would love any support in the form of a like, a comment, a share, or even a look onto our Patreon.
A little dollar. Some coin.
Feedback in any format is really important to us. So stay tuned for part 2. If you're watching this, it will come out soon, or it may have already come out.
And if it's already out, see you in a second.